Hello
I
and
don't
welcome back.
MMA.
Oh, wait. I'm so tempted to leave that in, but I'll do it again. Hello and welcome back to Verbal Money. This is the podcast that isn't afraid to deal with the big questions, just like the MMA Mania know how much enjoyment I'm going to get out of the headline. Gilbert Burns' wife demanded no bagging at UFC 283. How did that get past anyone? Incredible. I had a whole thing about Power Slap League that I was going to say about how there's a guy competing on the show called Slap Jesus. But you're never going to hear it. We're only going to talk about this one time and then never talk about it again. We'll sweep it right under the rug. There's a joke there somewhere about slapping, but I'm not going to go into it. Steve, I know that you watched it. What did you think about Power Slap League?
I'm still trying to regain my composure from our pre-recording antics just then. So basically, I watched the episode purely because I'm studying sort of CTE concussions for my dissertation. So I thought, and specifically the way the media handles those things. So I thought, I should watch it. I'm just going through a thread I put on Twitter the other day. The best thing I could say, it felt like a Saturday Night Live parody of The Ultimate Fighter. That's kind of the vibe I got. These people, like, a lot of them aren't even like proper martial artists. It was hard to watch at times because it's not even like you get, it's like a bad format that causes damage and things, but like it's also not entertaining. Like it's a format that is like better suited to TikTok and like Instagram reels stretched out in an hour-long show.
Yeah,
it wasn't good.
I agree with
know
you.
That, yeah. So there's some clips that are kind of, I don't know how many clips you've seen that have gone around social media and stuff. There was one moment, like 2 minutes into the show, a guy got knocked out. They zoomed in on him, and he was like, "Where am I? Was I fighting?" And the guy was like, "You're at the slap event." Yeah. One thing as well. I'm literally just going through my thread here because I watched it a few days ago and I didn't take notes or anything. They use a 10-9 scoring system.
I was just about to ask you about that, Steve.
Yeah.
How does that work?
So basically, it was like 3 rounds. So like slap, 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 slap. Yeah.
They should have that in the official rules.
That is how it tends to go.
Yeah. So one slap each. That's 1 round. We do 3 rounds. So there's no knockout. 10-9 scoring system. I don't understand how they. Is it something like if they go down, it's a 10-8?
I was just going to ask.
I've got no idea. That doesn't really work. I don't feel like. Doesn't even work in MMA.
What the fuck is the criteria for what's a better slap?
And they
technique count?
They didn't explain any of this. The first couple fights were finished. So when they got to a decision and they just announced the scores, I'm like, oh, they're doing 10-8 or 10-9 apparently. And I think it was a 29-28. So who really knows? They didn't explain it one bit. But no, I think we all saw the ratings the other day, right?
Oh yeah.
Not looking good for them. As like you said, Kyle, even the wrestling fans weren't sticking around for this after AEW on Wednesday.
I mean, it doesn't help. I watched it as well. And
you didn't tell me that.
Oh yeah. I just wanted to get your take.
You bastard! And you're there like, oh, Steve, you watched it. Why don't you talk about it? You fucking watched it.
What did you think, Kyle?
Yeah.
What did you think, Kyle?
I can't even use
Steve drove in the bus.
I can't even.
He's at this shit the whole time. It was like, oh, Steve, you went to the Misfits weigh-ins. Why don't you tell us about it?
Yeah.
It's like he's making Steve the fucking black sheep for the whole thing.
I know, right? I know.
I don't even. Yeah, I don't have the. I mean, I didn't watch the Misfits thing, but I don't have the excuse of being like I live near it or I'm studying it for CTE. I just watched it because I remember when it took off on YouTube like years ago, and I remember finding that entertaining. But then somehow trying to make it a professional sport, it loses all like sense of entertainment and just becomes like it's like watching an episode of Black Mirror that's real. Like it is so off-putting, and like we said, the wrestling fans were even like, I mean, it doesn't help that they started it. Like the literal first thing you see of the show is that guy getting knocked out and asking where he is. And I think it was Mark Smith, the referee, having to tell him you're at the slap event, and his face was just like blank. Like that is enough to make anyone turn it off.
That's a good point, by the way. Mark Smith, we had him, Chris Tognoni, and Jason Herzog as the referees in this. I don't know the best way to say this. I feel bad for them getting dragged into this. I hope they got paid. To be honest, yeah. And none of the slappers. I was saying
that's all you can call them. You can't call them fighters.
No, that's what they called them. I think. None of them were remotely likable. Did you agree, Kyle?
Yeah. No, I agree.
The most likable guys on the show were the coaches.
Yeah, and that's just because they weren't ridiculous human beings. Like they just seemed like normal people.
Like who was the guy in the first or second fight who kept yelling everywhere and like kept yelling at the crowd and stuff?
The guy that had one eye.
Was that him?
Yeah. So there's a guy who had one eye. He won, and they were like, "We have to put him in. He's a great personality." And then I don't think it was Hunter Campbell. I think it was another guy. Was like, "Dana, we can't put him in. They won't license him because he's only got one eye." And I was like, "Why have you wasted my time with this?"
What the?
So the guy he beat got in instead. I was like, "What is going on?
What the fuck? How did this?" Okay, right. Let's back up on this. Right. So I presume it's like, are they doing this under the commission in Vegas?
Yeah, Nevada.
Okay, so how did he get into the fight in the first place if they wouldn't license him, or did they do that outside of regulation?
Yeah, they did like trials or something a few months ago. I thought that was in Nevada as well, so I'm not sure how that works.
This show the other day was at the Apex.
Yeah.
So this is a fucking shit show.
I think what they did is they did like a trial, because like at that point it didn't need to be licensed or something.
Yeah, I guess so.
And then they took that trial to commission and said, we want to turn this into like an actual sport. I think that's kind of how it went. They also had a women's fight when there was no intention to have women in the house. So what's the point?
It's a very good question.
Catering to all audiences, isn't it? Well, it's trying to. Not sure it's succeeding in that, but did you say there was someone called Slappy McJesus or something?
Yeah, there's a guy with long hair who was like, I'm Slap Jesus.
I thought you said Slappy McJesus.
That would be even better.
Slap Jesus.
Well, it's just it should be on Comedy Central instead of whatever it's on.
I think because
it's like one of those that fucking Key and Peele sketch of fucking MMA fighters and all that kind of thing, like trying to be hard men. Like that's the shit we're dealing with here.
Yeah. 100%. I don't want to talk about it too much because it's stupid and it doesn't deserve to be talked about. But I would find it really enjoyable if we all did a live reaction to an episode, because I think
I want to now.
We can all like just say how awful it is the whole time and not feel bad about it. So it's
I kind of want to make Jamie and Jake watch the first episode.
I've seen that. I mean, I know it wasn't from that, but the clip of the guy with like a face that's like out there, that made me honestly feel sick.
Yeah, that coming out in the same week didn't help them, to be honest.
That really didn't help them at all.
There was a guy on the show who I think was like 18 maybe, who he got slapped and he instantly had a hematoma. Like
18 years old.
If it was an MMA fight, it would have been stopped. Like, I mean, I think it did get stopped after that anyway, but it was bad.
I've got the UFC recap up. I'm just seeing if there's anything on here. One-Eyed Wolf was the guy.
Was that One-Eyed Wolf against Slappy McJesus? What is...
do they have to be called these names on the show? Is that what they call them?
No, that was his nickname. They didn't all have nicknames.
Oh, thank fuck for that. I was thinking between Slap Jesus and One-Eyed Wolf. I thought, like...
Like it's gladiators or something. Like they don't have real names.
That's some bullshit stuff. Like
no,
all of this is bullshit, but
One-Eyed Wolf was against Ryan Phillips. So there you go.
No, at least he's got just a standard now. And look, I've said this before as well. Like, if people enjoy it, people enjoy it. Like different strokes for different folks, but it's just not for me. It's like I just don't think I could watch it and get enjoyment out of it. But
I don't think the violence is necessarily an issue for me. Like, look at the sport we watch. Like,
yeah,
we can't really complain about the violence and that kind of shit. It just seems like a shit product. And like, I found one of the stupidest things about it, and like we're talking way too much about this, but like we'll wrap it up.
I agree, Jay. I do agree with that.
It's like Jake's internet knew
like that is
to speak about it.
At least in MMA and in boxing and in nearly all combat sports, you're trying to defend yourself in this. It's fucking ridiculous.
I agree, Jack. It is
for fuck's
definitely
sake.
ridiculous.
Yeah, you fell into the ether then, Jake.
All right, Jake, have we got you back?
Yeah, no, I'm here. Don't worry.
Okay. I feel like
I'm on this.
I feel like you said it all.
Yeah, I'm on this recap. Just like so you guys know, Slap Jesus' real name, Mike Smith.
Brilliant.
Oh, fuck off. Mike Smith.
I'm not surprised.
One-Eyed Jesus.
Slap Jesus.
Or fucking One-Eyed Wolf. I call him One-Eyed Jesus.
One-Eyed Jesus. He might be One-Eyed Jesus by the end of it.
I'm not going to be able to watch the show without thinking of One-Eyed Slappy McJesus.
One-Eyed Slappy McJesus.
I do like the idea though of everyone sitting down to watch the fucking new episode when it comes out. Are they going to be posting episode 2 on YouTube?
I hope so.
After the ratings for that band, I would imagine so.
Pass, for sure.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, it's on Fight Pass anyway. If you know.
Yeah. Fuck that.
So if we want to do a watch along, then
the fucking live fight companion for Power Slap episode 2.
we should do it. I'm all in.
Yeah.
Wow. Right.
On to the real fight news.
I know. I remember last week I was saying about how difficult it was to come up with an intro because there was nothing like controversial or funny I could talk about. And then this week we've had Power Slap, people throwing beer at Brandon Moreno, and Barstool Sports existing. Like any of those are worth mentioning. It's crazy.
Can we talk about that Barstool headline for a second?
Absolutely.
Like, what were they thinking, to be honest?
They weren't, Steve. That's the issue. They weren't thinking.
Yeah.
They should have.
You need a brain to think, and no one at Barstool has that.
Yeah.
It's such bullshit. Like, fuck Dave Portnoy. Just in general.
On the record, man. Yeah, it's not a good look. It really is.
And Robbie from Barstool Sports as well. Robbie from Barstool as well.
Oh,
yeah. Oh
yeah.
Fuck, I'm not gonna hear it.
Sitting in media row in a McGregor t-shirt.
Baffling. Let's talk about some actual stuff that's worth talking about. Steve, I know that you watched the Invicta card that happened midway through the week. So how was that? And I haven't watched an Invicta event in ages. I don't think I've watched one since they've been putting their events on YouTube. So how is it now?
It's a good product. Obviously we've got 2 new champions. We had Caitlin Souza and Christina Williams for the vacant flyweight title. Caitlin Souza is the winner. She's the champion now. And Talita Bernardo defeated Tanisha Tennant for the bantamweight title in the main event. It's a good product. Olga Rubin, who used to be in Bellator, she trains out of TV Top Team. She looked really good in her fight. Claire Guthrie from the Ultimate Fighter got a win on the show. So it was a good card. And obviously the next card in March, we've got Ireland's Danny McCormack fighting for the title. I forget which weight class. I should have checked. If you know, Jake, do you?
I want to say 125, but that's off
No,
the top of my head.
the 125 title was on this card.
Oh shit! Then well, yeah, clearly not.
15? Is she 15?
She's not 35, so I think it has to be 115.
Yeah, cool. Against Valeska Mercado, the champion. That's all they announced for next show is in March. But the show's on YouTube, so I would say to anyone, give it a look. Why not? The shows are good. So many of the UFC's female fighters came through Invicta. Like, it's not even funny. There's so many. The vast majority, I feel like. So, I would say the events are worth watching around the same time as Dynamite finishes. So if you don't want to watch the Slap League, you can go watch Invicta.
Yeah, very true. That one championship was back as well for the first event in their series at the Olympia Stadium. One Friday Fights One, which is a name I've not really gotten used to yet. But there was some ridiculously good fights on that card that, again, you can check out on YouTube. The main event with Nongo and Ramazanov was amazing. I suppose we should talk about UFC 283. Pretty big card, a lot to talk about, which our preview, I think maybe we did kind of suggest it might be one of those cards where there's loads of stuff to talk about at the end. And we certainly got that. I know the answer to this question, but I'm going to ask it anyway because I keep seeing it on Twitter today and I don't understand why. Jamie, do you think Jamal Hill is the worst UFC champion of all time?
I mean, he's definitely not the worst, but look, I said before the fight, I mean, obviously we speak about the fights in our group chat, and I wasn't really too sure how Jamal Hill was going to perform on this kind of stage and at this level. Because, I mean, there's not really a big enough sample size to suggest that he would have looked comfortable in there against someone like Glover. But the performance he put on it wasn't just like a good performance. It was completely well-rounded as well. He completely held his own in the grappling department. I think Glover landed 2 of 17 takedowns, which alone shows how far Jamal Hill's games came. And the total fight between him and Prohaska is going to be, I think that's going to be a really good fight. And obviously the betting line has came out this week. A lot of people are quite surprised that Prohaska is going to be the underdog, which, I mean, come whatever event they might fight on, he might not be the underdog, but initially, I think the line is pretty accurate. I think Jamal Hill can cause Prohaska quite a few problems because of Jiri's lack of defense when it comes to the striking department. And Jamal Hill's got quite accurate strikes. He's quite accurate with his attacks. So, I mean, it's going to be a good fight regardless. And he did prove a lot of people wrong. So I've got to give him his flowers.
Yeah. Steve, I know that when this fight got announced, you picked Jamal Hill to win the fight, and me and Jake were both confused. Did you expect it to be that one-sided? I'm assuming not.
No, I think I'd actually flipped to Glover by the end. I thought Glover would do what he did to Jan Blachowicz, basically, and obviously that's not what happened. Jamal looked great on the feet. You wonder how much of the last fight, how much the Glover and Jiri fight took out of him coming into this one. We've seen that happen definitely before with older fighters coming out of a particularly grueling fight. But it's not as if Jamal just went in and knocked him out, which would have been the case after that. He really dominated that whole fight. And I saw that tweet as well about Jamal being the worst UFC champion. Like, it's not even worth having that discussion, to be honest. Even just the way he dominated Glover, you can't have that discussion after a fight like that, I don't think. And no, I wasn't expecting what we saw, of course. No, I thought if Jamal was going to win, he was going to finish him. I wasn't expecting a full 25-minute performance from Jamal. No way.
No. We have to talk about the fact that Glover Teixeira is retired because he had such an incredible run in recent years and has delivered some incredible moments over his recent form. I personally was gutted because I wanted to see the Yuri rematch. I thought, that would be the perfect way for him to bow out of the UFC if he lost then. So when he did decide that he was going to retire, I was like, we're never going to see that again. And that's difficult to take, that we won't ever get that again. But Jake, how excited are you for Yuri versus Jamal Hill? Because this light heavyweight division has been weird and no one could have predicted that we'd be getting that fight this year.
I didn't see it coming anyway. Yeah, look, if that does happen in 2023, I'm actually quite excited for it because I feel like I was being a little bit harsh on Hill in the last episode. But as you guys were saying, we didn't have a massive pool of talent to judge him off before that, so I'm very surprised. I would still favor Yuri, of course, dependent on how Yuri comes back from injury. But if that does happen this year, then I would be pretty excited for it. But I have a feeling that's not the fight that Yuri comes back to. I think Hill does lose the belt. He's a good fighter, and he's definitely not the worst champion of all time. Not in a world where Nico Montano exists. So, yeah, you know what? I'm pleasantly surprised by Jamal Hill. Still a prick, but
I've seen rumblings. I mean, after the fight, obviously, people are kind of saying that they're speculating that Adesanya's going to be out for quite a considerable amount of time. He's got to have surgery. I'm not sure if that's true. And then people are kind of putting two and two together and saying that so that the UFC doesn't lose that rematch between Pereira and Adesanya, they might kind of push Alex to move up now rather than after an Izzy fight. So maybe Alex moves up now, fights Hill as Hill's first title defense, as his first title defense. I don't know. I just don't know whether it would. That's what I've seen people speculating, but obviously speculation. So who knows?
Yeah, I mean, it's worth saying we are going to do, after we've kind of previewed some stuff coming up this weekend, we're going to do our champion predictions for the end of the year. So factoring that in, I mean, it's something that when I broke down my predictions like at the start of the year, I hadn't thought about Alex Pereira fighting at light heavyweight, and now you have to factor it in as a potential fight that's going to happen in that division. The co-main event, very strange. Because of the way it ended, feels a little bit anticlimactic, which is unfortunate considering it's the fourth fight between Figueiredo and Moreno. We don't need to see another one, but did leave a little bit to be desired just the way it ended. But I don't think it's fair to take any of that away from Brandon Moreno's performance, who I thought was fantastic on the night. Steve, did you have Brandon Moreno winning going into it, and how impressed were you?
I was super impressed. I had him winning. I predicted him to win, and obviously he was ahead on the scorecards at that point. He looked really good. And it took these 4 fights for him. You see the progression. Like, first fight, obviously a draw, but Davison won that fight decision, and it was close. Second fight, he got the decision or the submission. Third fight didn't go his way, but then the fourth fight is like, I feel the best Brandon Moreno all round we saw in the tetralogy. He looked really good, and that's, people are kind of complaining about like, oh, it's a doctor stoppage like they always do, but it's a legit win, and he caused that injury. It wasn't an eye poke. We know this, and he looked really good. It was definitely a deserving win. He was up at that point. The big win. And it's interesting to see what they do next, because obviously everyone else has kind of been on ice while we waited for these two to finish up their business. I think Pantoja is obviously going to be the next contender. So, and that's a tricky fight. I would possibly lean towards Pantoja in that one. But back to the original point on Moreno, he looked great.
Yeah, I'm not sure there's much else to say about that fight, because Brandon Moreno was so good in that fight that there's not really a lot to talk about from Figueiredo's perspective, apart from that he's going to go up to bantamweight, which I think is, again, it's kind of a no-brainer. It just makes a lot of sense, I think. I know that I'm putting you guys on the spot by doing this because we haven't spoken about this beforehand, but is there a bantamweight name that jumps out to you for Figueiredo's debut? Because there is some exciting matchups that could be had in that division.
I think once he kind of announced that he was going to move up on the weekend, there was a couple of people in the chat at the time that were still awake. We were trying to kind of decipher who he might fight as he moves up. I think the only one that even makes sense and that isn't booked is Umar. I think he's the only one that isn't like already booked into a fight. I mean, obviously, if you're looking outside of the top 10, there is a few names, but does Figueiredo move up and fight outside of the top 10? I doubt it.
Yeah, I agree with you on that one.
No way. I don't think there's not a world where you have a guy like Figueiredo who goes up and fights anyone lower than maybe 6th or 7th position. I was going to say Umar too, but that's because there's actually been a lot of points made online recently about how Umar is like the only guy in the division who isn't booked outside Dominic Cruz. Please, for fuck's sake, don't make that fight.
Yeah.
Just please, dear God, I would actually take Cruz over Figueiredo over that. Now, would that be a bit of a crucifixion of my Lord and Savior Dominic Cruz? Yes, it would. But at least I'd have the excuse that Figueiredo was like a former champion. But I don't know. It's a very difficult one. I almost would have said Yan versus Figueiredo had Yan not been booked with Merab. Or maybe Merab versus Figueiredo, something like that. Like a top 5 opponent, I think, is very deserving because, like, Figueiredo has spent the best part of nearly 2.5 years just fighting Brandon Moreno. So let's reward him for going up. And he brought interest back to the flyweight division. I know Henry Cejudo is credited with saving the flyweights, but Davidson Figueiredo made the flyweight title picture entertaining. So yeah, give him fucking the loser of Merab and Yan.
I want to go in a slightly different direction on this. We've got this Marlon Vera, Corey Sandhagen fight coming up soon. If Sandhagen wins that fight, he's not getting a title shot. I wouldn't have thought. So I think Sandhagen and Figueiredo could be a good one. Even Vera,
so much difference in that.
Yeah, I was going to say that's big.
I mean, it's still they're both bantamweight, so there's no reason why not. But yeah. I just initial thought of that fight.
Yeah,
and obviously, if Marlon wins, he probably deserves a title shot. But Sean's up there; he might get that. Henry's obviously still knocking around, so Marlon Vera might be free. In which case, Figueiredo and Marlon Vera, why not?
What are they doing with Sean? What are they? Is it going to be an interim, him and Cejudo maybe? Because
he said no matter what, he's fighting for a title next. He said the UFC promised him a title shot no matter what happens.
But that could be an interim title fight.
The winner of Sterling and Cejudo. Yeah, that's the thing though. But I mean, it doesn't make a difference to him. He's still going to get pay-per-view if he wins.
Oh yeah, of course, yeah. I mean, it could be O'Malley that he comes up to fight, but
I don't see that one.
No, I don't see it personally because I think O'Malley will either fight Sterling when Sterling's ready, or he's going to fight an interim against Cejudo. But do they go with O'Malley over Cejudo if Sterling's ready to go? I don't know. And then O'Malley's sitting out waiting for how long? Because we've seen how long Sterling kind of takes between fights, which is fair enough, but I don't see O'Malley waiting for that fight to culminate and then wait for that. I just don't see it.
Yeah, if he's been promised a title fight next, it makes it confusing with whether they're going to wait for Cejudo, because I always thought if Marlon Vera wins, then Marlon versus Sean in a rematch is great, but they're not going to do that as a fight night headliner. So if you put the interim title on there and then Cejudo has to wait to come back, who knows?
Yeah.
So it's a difficult one. Gilbert Burns' wife demanding no banging at UFC 283 definitely worked out in his favor. There you go. That another headline for you.
Yeah, he looked great as well. It's again with Gilbert. What does he do next? Does he? I mean, he's going to try and get Colby out of hiding, but is Colby going to come out of hiding to fight Gilbert? I don't know.
He isn't as fuck. No way.
No, he's not. But other than Colby, maybe Belal Muhammad in a total elimination fight. That's the only thing that makes sense other than Colby. So,
yeah, I agree. Maybe if Shavkat beats Jeff Neal, call out there. That would be lovely. But that's a really tough.
Oh, that's so unfair to Burns, though.
Yeah.
Burns fighting Chimaev and Shavkat in 3 fights would just be like, oh man.
And also,
if anyone's going to do it, Gilbert will do it.
Here's Neil Magny, who it's so difficult to look good against.
Yeah.
I could see Burns coming over and being the backup for 286, to be honest.
Yeah, it's good.
He
good
might
shout.
do, yeah.
More of an argument to Dalby 30-27 than there was to Alves winning, I think.
I can't say I was watching close enough, to be honest.
No. I don't know what I was.
I as much as I would like to give Jessica Andrade versus Lauren Murphy to Jake, because I'm sure he has some sort of wild take on this fight, I feel like we should reserve Jake for the adopted son of Ireland, Johnny Walker. So, Jamie or Steve, do you want to talk about Jessica Andrade's? I was going to say brutal.
I'd love to speak about it, Steve, if you'd let me.
You go for it, man.
And the only reason I would is because hopefully I've got a piece coming out soon. It's kind of to do with the harrowing side of MMA and the side that doesn't really get highlighted or spoken about because of the fact that it's quite uncomfortable. And that is that why do coaches kind of refrain from pulling their fighters out of fights or throwing in the towel? Throwing in the towel is something you very, very rarely see. Pulling fighters out of fights is something that is a bit more common, but still nowhere near common enough as it should be. That was a perfect example of coaches should have pulled their fighter out of the fight. I mean, at round 1 and 2, she got completely battered. Why not pull her out of it in between rounds 2 and 3, knowing that she's considerably down on the cards? Could have been 2-10-8, which, I mean, I think it was 2 judges scored it the first round of 10-9 and the second round of 10-8. So she was down. She needed a finish. She was obviously nowhere near getting a finish in that fight. Wasn't even putting up any good offense to even assume that she could cause Andrade any problems. Pull her out of that fight, man. There's no need for her to go in there in round 3 for another 5 minutes of what she'd already gone through. There was just no need whatsoever. And it became quite uncomfortable to watch it, to be honest, because she just had no reason to be in there at all. But
yeah, it was a tough one to watch. I mean, it was a great performance for Jessica Andrade.
Oh yeah,
but the main talking point was always going to be the corner not pulling Lauren Murphy out that fight.
And since the fight, Murphy's came out and made a statement saying that she's happy that her corner didn't pull her out. So obviously she knew that was going to be a talking point herself. From what I saw on the broadcast and obviously what BT Sport was showing, I didn't see any point in which the corner actually said to her, "Do you want to go back out there for round 3?" The only thing that I heard them screaming was body language, Lauren. Body language. I think the last thing that she's worrying about in round 3 is how her body language looks. I'll even give her the option of, obviously that it shouldn't be an option whether to pull them or not. It should just be something they do. But it happened in the Glover fight. I think between round 4 and 5, his head coach said, "Do you want to go back out for round 5?" and gave him that knowledge of, you're not looking great out there. You're comprehensively losing. Do you really want to go out for another 5 minutes? And he stood up and he was pumped for it. He was like, "Yeah, definitely." And they obviously checked the cut. But with the Murphy fight, I didn't even see a part of that fight where they asked her if she wanted to carry on, which it's just, I don't know. It's
shameful, honestly. It really is, because there's such a stigma about, even in boxing, it's called retiring on the stool or quitting on stool, all that kind of shit. There's and even us as fans, we pride fighters who go out for the final round in a fight they're getting battered in. And, it's like, oh, how tough is this person, all that kind of thing. That's great. But even in the Teixeira fight, John Hackleman, his head coach, he asked the rest of the cornermen, should we stop this fight? And everyone else said no. And Glover said no. And obviously, Glover's bound to say that. But why didn't Murphy's corner or the rest of Teixeira's corner just say, look, there's been some 10-8s in each of those fights. there's no way they're going to pull it back. Let's just, keep a few years on our fighter's life. It's the fighters are always going to be against it. Like you were saying, Jamie, like Laura Murphy, she came out and said that she's glad her corner didn't stop it. And Anthony Smith said when he fought Glover Teixeira that if his coaches had stopped that fight, he would have fired his coaches. This is a fight where he got his teeth knocked out. Yeah, that was.
I did see a really good thread as well that I kind of want to just give credit to as well. It was Steffi Haynes on Twitter, and that's Crooklyn MMA. She did a really good thread about how women recover differently from concussion and how it takes them longer to recover and that sort of thing. And that was a really good thread in light of the Murphy thing. So, I mean, if anybody's listening that's got time to read through that, then I recommend that thread.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, at least we can praise her for good body language in the third round.
It's the commentary as well.
Impeccable.
Hearing the commentary say she's too tough for her own good, like that doesn't reassure the viewers that, oh, okay, she's a tough girl, she can take it. That shouldn't be the excuse that you use to like kind of reassure people that she's okay in there, because she was just getting absolutely battered.
Even Anik.
They were saying on commentary that like we say she's too tough for her own good, but we know what this really means. They were saying things like that.
I think it was Anik. Yeah, Anik said, like, we can sit here and say and talk about how tough she is and how much heart she has for 3 rounds, but it doesn't change the fact that she's getting the shit kicked out of her, basically. I do wish her all the best, though, seeing as Laura Murphy is apparently she's my favorite fighter of all that.
I see a lot of criticism for the refs
she's basically Irish.
I saw a lot of people criticising the officials in both that fight and the Glover fight, which to me, that's not where the kind of problem lies, in my opinion. Because every time, I think it was Mark Goddard for the Glover fight, every time he kind of got close and said, Glover, you need to fight back, he did. Every time he did it, Glover started throwing back and kind of offering something. Whereas, and the same kind of happened with Lauren Murphy, but that's not where the issue is, in my opinion. It's with the corner. They should have taken it out of her control and the ref's control, because there wasn't really any point in that, especially in the Murphy fight, where she was wobbled or where the fight should have been stopped. But
I think the ref should have stopped the Murphy fight, personally. Yeah. Maybe that comes from the fact that I had Jessica Andrade by 3rd round TKO on verdicts. Maybe that's where that comes from.
I also had Andrade finish, but I don't think there was a part of that fight where Murphy was wobbled or like about to drop. It was more just the constant beating.
I think it was the end of the second, like the very end of the second round, she started to look a bit wobbly, and it looked like the ref was going to jump in, but the round ended. The rest of it was just a one-sided beatdown, and it's the kind of beating someone takes, and you're like, yeah, they're probably never the same again. I do think you're right though about the Teixeira fight. I think every time that Goddard was telling them, Glover, you have to fight back, he did swing and land, so he was still in that fight, even if he wasn't going to win it.
Yeah.
As I said, Jake, you'll take on the adopted son of Ireland, Johnny Walker.
Pleasantly surprised. I picked against him in this one. I picked Paul Craig to win by submission in the second round.
You picked your big dick swinger.
Yes, he's my big dick swinger. Paul Craig did not win by second round submission. He was brutally knocked out in the first round, unfortunately. Very weird knockout. Yeah. People didn't talk about it a whole lot because of what happened on the rest of the card. Like, he knocked out Paul Craig with one leg in the air, hitting him back fists. So, yeah, very, very impressive. Also, Johnny Walker's a lot bigger than I thought. He said he weighed 232 pounds on the night of the fight, or more. I think it was 235. He's a big fucker, and he was talking about how he wants to move up to heavyweight as well. Yeah. That's not going to end well. But let the man dream. He's on a 2-fight win streak for the first time since 2019. So let him have his moment.
Yeah, I've met Johnny at a Bellator show. not just like tall. Like he was like he's thicker than you would think just from watching TV as well.
I mean, at least he didn't get shot out of the arena this time, so that's a plus. Bruno Ferreira.
He did post his phone number on the internet, though.
Of course he did. So he's always got to do something.
It was such a Johnny Walker finish as well. Like Jake was saying how unusual it was. Only Johnny Walker could pull something like that off and then leak his phone number himself online. But I mean,
I texted him and he never wish him well.
Yeah, as if everyone was going to message him like, "Congrats, Johnny."
I didn't congratulate him though. I did text him on WhatsApp as he asked. I just asked him for an interview, and he hasn't got back to me, unfortunately. But
I wonder whose number it was. It can't have...
This is not okay. I just pulled it up. That's not Johnny Walker. That's
Slappy
the profile picture.
What who is that? Oh, what?
That's the guy in the profile picture on Johnny Walker's WhatsApp.
Yeah, that's not
I messaged him last night asking for an interview. That's not Johnny Walker.
You might get an interview. Might get an interview.
I might get an interview. I might text him and ask if he slapped Jesus.
Can you imagine if you clicked on the WhatsApp photo and it was Ariel? Oh god, that'd have been bad.
Not good.
Like I said at the start, there is so many highlights that we can talk about. Pretty much all Brazilians. In fact, all Brazilian highlights from here on. The fight before that, the final prelim. I say all Brazilian highlights in a way because Mauricio Shogun Rua retired, which is the main talking point. Obviously, it didn't end in a very good way for him, but I think that everyone kind of predicted that this is how this fight would go. So I can't say I was devastated to see Shogun lose, but I was happy to see him retire. It felt like a matchup that shouldn't have happened, and it played out like that. So I don't know if there's anything else you guys want to add, but this fight was always going to go that way, There
was a point in that first round where he caught Pottiera with a check left hook and almost turned his lights out. And if that happened to anyone else, I would have been like, oh shit, he could have been out. I thought it was a semi-winnable matchup for him because I wasn't that impressed with Pottiera's run up to this point. But I mean, he looked decent in there, to be fair, so fair enough. But yeah, it's sad to see Shogun go out like that. But the way that we've seen legends go out recently, it could have been worse. That's the only silver lining I can take from it.
The knockout itself wasn't too bad.
Yeah,
there's been worse. Yeah, yeah, and it was kind of competitive up until that point. Shogun actually looked okay in terms of what he landed, and I think that Pottiera fella is an absolute arsehole. Like,
Oh no, Steve. Oh, what's going on? Jake's gone. I'm so
sorry. And then he's there at the press conference. Oh, Steve! Oh no!
We're leaving it in.
Oh my god!
I'm ugly laughing. I've gone red. Oh,
this happened before the start of the show, by the way. We were all waiting for it to happen again.
It wasn't as bad this time.
No, it didn't last as long.
Yeah.
I thought that Corley not being here, the chaos would reduce quite a bit, but maybe not.
And this is why I'm rescheduling the interviews I booked this week.
I feel like the
Pottiera is a bit of a dick.
Yeah, no, he is. He's a massive dick. Okay, maybe not massive. No, you know what? Fuck it. I'll double down. He's a massive dick. I remember his post-fight interview as well.
I thought he was pretty cold with what he did, to be fair. He shot in the air.
Yeah.
I mean, it was pretty weird, but then
that was cold. That was cold.
It was slightly cold, like lukewarm.
In what fucking world is that cold? He looks like a knob jockey.
It was lukewarm.
He's lukewarm.
It wasn't cool.
No, but he's there in his post-fight interview as well, and he's talking about how he's the future of the light heavyweight division.
Yeah,
after knocking out the ghost of Shogun Rua.
I didn't listen to any of that.
And at the press conference as well, he gets up and he does the whole fucking thing again, being like, I'm a duelist, I didn't shoot him, I've got so much respect for him. Fuck off.
That might have been the best impression I've ever seen of that little shit.
The whole thing, no, fuck that, what an arsehole. Nah, I pray, put him in with fucking Jamal Hill. Do you know what? It's the only time I'd root for Jamal Hill.
No,
theory for his return fight. That'll be it.
You know how Jake likes to do his thing where he gives a fighter a compliment and then slates them. He's going to do this in reverse and then pick Ihor to win the championship and end the year as light heavyweight champion. Right?
Oh yeah.
The way I see it, there was 3 other big talking points from this card. That is Bruno Ferreira knocking out Gregory Rodriguez. That was ridiculous. Jelton Almeida getting another dominant win, which everyone saw coming, and the Bonfim brothers, which is the one that really caught my eye. 2 incredible finishes on there. Is there anything you guys want to say about any of those performances? Because they were all fantastic.
Jelton's beautiful. That's all I'm going to say. He's just a monster. He's slightly terrifying. And I meant beautiful as a mixed martial artist, not as he's a good-looking man, but...
I think, as the LGBTQ representative of this podcast, I can safely say Jelton Almeida is a very good-looking man. But fucking terrifying as well. Look at the size of him. How does he fight at 205 as well? He just threw around Shamil, who's a 260-pound heavyweight, like it was nothing. That fucker goes down to 205, everyone's done. He beat Jamal Hill, pretty handily, I think. Yeah. He's cool, ain't he? But again, the minus 950 favorite won a fight. It's not a shocking thing.
I mean, Shamil's no bum though. I mean, he's not the most technically gifted heavyweight there's ever been, but he's experienced, and it's a good feather to have in Jelton's hat this early on, I think. I mean, I know he's 31, or I think he's 31, so it's not as if he's an extremely young prospect, but I mean, it's a good win.
I do agree, but I slated Shamil so hard last week, I can't possibly make a U-turn now. I've committed myself to becoming a Shamil Abdurakhimov hater, and that's it. I'm officially putting forward the campaign to cut Shamil now. It's 4 losses in a row. All of them have been by finish. Let's just... It's good riddance for the roster. All right? I know, it'll make some people's records look less credible that they beat a guy who's no longer in the UFC, but I don't care. I cannot have this guy in the top 15 anymore. Do you know what? They'll fucking do something now where they'll put Jelton in at number 14 and Shamil will stay number 15. Just do it and see.
To be fair, his losses in this run have been to Curtis Blades, Chris Daukaus, Sergey Pavlovich, and Jelton Almeida. It could be worse.
Yeah, they're not horrible, but I've committed now.
He beat Marcin Tybura.
Wow. He main evented against Derek Lewis as well back in when was it, Steve?
2016. I've got
2016. Albany, New York. Why do I know that? Why do I know that?
This get away with it. Is this right?
Yeah. That's the.
He fought on I don't know, probably in Russia in 2010. He fought a guy called Shamil Abdulmuslimov. Shabdul Abdurakhimov versus Shamil Abdulmuslimov.
Jesus, that's a nightmare.
That fight didn't happen. That was fucking made up by someone on Tapology or something.
Yeah.
There's no way.
There's 2 Shamils.
Yeah.
Jake's furious.
2 fuckers I have to hate.
He doesn't even know. Oh, it's so good. It gets shorter every time.
What I do want to say,
that's a plus.
Who has a bigger ceiling, the Bash brothers or the Bonfim brothers?
Who did you say?
The Bachelorette brothers or Bonfim?
Oh, the Bachelorette brothers. I thought you said the Bash brothers.
Well, yeah, the Bash brothers.
Oh, you did say Bash.
Oh yeah, I wasn't gonna.
Are they well known? Are they well known enough that you can now like shorten their names?
It's because like the Smash Brothers, Smash Bash, Smash Brothers, the game.
Oh, you're going to be one of those, aren't you? You're going. The Bachelorette brothers are going to be the new Smash Brothers.
Who has which brothers have a hotter ceiling though? Would you say?
I think
I'm going to say the Bonfim brothers.
Slightly off topic, sorry, but
yeah.
I think the Bachelorette brothers.
Look at last week's episode. Don't worry about off topic. I spent 10 minutes criticizing everyone on the card. Like we've diverged.
To be fair, you were talking about the card though. It's not off topic, really.
Yeah, I suppose.
I mean, this is a review of the card.
I mean,
yeah, Bonfim brother. Let's rework the question. The Bonfim brothers are good. Are they better than the Bachelorette brothers?
No, but like, who has a biggest ceiling is the question. Not who's better. Who can go further in the sport. Obviously, you've got to take into consideration the weight classes they fight in and that sort of thing.
I think the Bonfim brothers have better wins so far.
Yeah, I'd agree, and I think like I'm not overly familiar with the Bachelorette brothers. I've seen them both fight, obviously, but I haven't like properly looked into them. But just based on their performances, the Bonfim brothers are fucking legit. Though they did unfortunately lead us to that Barstool headline. So
I'd probably go Ismail Bonfim and Javid as the two that I think will be big contenders. But...
Yeah, agreed. I think that's pretty much everything from UFC 283. Unless there's anything else.
Let's just touch on that knockout for a second. Like,
KO of the year already.
Pure unadulterated filth. That was fantastic. Josiane Nunes as well. Like 5'1.5" and fighting at 145 pounds against. How tall is Farron? Is she like 5'8"?
5'8".
5'8", yeah. She's 5'8".
Yeah. No, the performance that was shocking from both ladies, especially Nunes. But just had to fucking give her props for winning that fight.
I think a unanimous decision was slightly rogue as well, to be honest. I think Fern could have had an argument to win that fight.
Yeah, I agree.
But I'd have to watch it back to know that, and I'm definitely not going to watch that one back. So,
no, you got to watch it.
Ben was doing well, Ali.
No, Jamie, you're going to have to watch it back for your analysis of Amanda Nunes versus Josiane Nunes for the featherweight title in Brazil, right? Main event of a pay-per-view, 80 quid for that. Could you imagine? That's the fight I want to see.
Pay more money.
You know, put it on BT box office. I'll pay for it.
Oh, my camera's died.
Does anyone have a working camera?
It's just
your camera's your camera's actually not gone off for me. I'm just looking at you like kind of smirking at me.
Yeah. I'll quickly change it, but carry on.
Do you guys? I'll get Corey to edit this out. Do you want to do the champion thing in this episode? Just because we've been going for quite a while already. I don't know if you want to save that for next week.
Yeah, I'd probably say not today.
Yeah,
I don't really mind. I just don't know if there's going to be another chance.
There's not a lot to talk about next week, I don't think.
There's not going to be a UFC to preview, and it's only the Derek Lewis South Korea card.
Yeah, exactly. And there's not
South Korea. Yeah.
There's not loads to talk about that. Is it Bellator that weekend as well? I think it is. The CBS card with Fedor and Ryan Bader and all of that madness. So we'll talk about that, but then we can do the champion stuff.
There you go.
Yes.
Hold on, I'm still here. I'm just changing the battery.
EOS webcam utility. Fucking love that sign.
You can carry on though, by the way. I will just jump back on.
Seconds. You've just reminded me by talking about that CB applied for press credentials for Bellator show. Like the fact that it's in the States, just why not? Like
Bellator virtual press stuff is actually pretty good, to be fair.
I don't have the time, and I don't have the energy to research Bellator fighters to talk to them. Like, if it's someone I know, then yeah, maybe. But other than that, fuck that.
Yeah, well, I interviewed
I'm
James
not
Bates
talking to some 2-2 guy from the prelims.
Bellator have just announced a new a card, Bellator 293, with a heavyweight main event between the number 7 and number 8 ranked guys.
Jesus.
Anyone that we know.
Who are they? Who are they?
Marcelo Gome and Daniel James.
Yeah.
That can't be the main event. Who is Daniel James?
In the UFC.
That is the co-main event, by the way. Kat Zingano versus Liam McCourt.
Okay, that's... Can you hear that ferocious soaring, by the way?
Maybe.
No,
not really.
Can't hear it at all.
No.
That's all right.
Yeah, Jake, what do you think about James Gallagher fighting like 2 weeks after the Dublin card?
It's phenomenal.
What kind of an idea is that? Like, I didn't even realize he wasn't on the Dublin card until I saw that announcement. I thought he was on it, but apparently not. That's bullshit. I don't think I'm gonna go to Bellator. Like I was going to, but the card looks so shit.
Yeah, I don't blame you, mate. I wouldn't bother either. I mean, maybe if it was like really close.
The Bellator London cards are literally 5 minutes away from me when they happen, so I go.
But... Yeah, that's fair enough.
Yeah.
I don't think there's much else to talk about. I was just gonna quickly preview the PFL thing that is on this weekend, so that we can clip that and put that out. But I think that's
when does it start? The Challenger Series?
This weekend, I believe.
This week, yeah.
It's weekend because they were like midweeks last year, weren't they?
Oh right, yeah, I think it's midweek.
Friday, apparently.
Oh, it's Friday.
Really?
Friday.
Oh.
Yeah.
So
we'll just wait for Jake.
Welterweights this week.
Yes.
Need to go and watch your interview with Michelle. She's great. I interviewed her last year. She's great, isn't she?
She's so great. Yeah. Like so easy to chat to.
Yeah. Still one of my favorite ones I've done for her Challenger Series fight last time.
I've got a story to tell about Kamel Atoni as well.
I still need to pull this card up.
So the only MMA action, I think there's an LFA card I think on Saturday and some other stuff like that. But the PFL is back with the Challenger Series. Their first event of the year. It is the welterweights who are up 4 fights from the Universal Studios in Orlando. And there's some guys on there that are pretty exciting. I think that out of all the Challenger Series cards they've announced so far, this is the one that is worth tuning into. At least the ones that have been announced so far. The main event, you've got Lucas Barboza, former IBJJF world champion, who trains under Andre Galvao. So that's worth tuning in for. You've got Eric Alakin, who is a former champion in, I believe, Cage Fury. Could be wrong on that one. It's a promotion similar to that. First is Thad Jean, who is a really exciting prospect. You've also got on this card, I think the point that a lot of people are going to be interested in is Brazil's Kamel Atoni, who some people might know the name because he's the guy who in Jungle Fight beat Alex Pereira a while ago. And he's been signed now to the PFL. I did actually interview him. The interview will never come out because the video was terrible. But we spoke through a translator and I asked him about Alex Pereira and how he feels about Alex's success. And he said that after fighting Alex, when Alex left Jungle Fights, he received a DM from Alex Pereira basically saying, "You'll never amount to anything. That win is the only success you'll ever have. And I'll never hear about you ever again." So if you were wondering if Alex Pereira is really like that in real life, he is. Like, The guy is fascinating. Like,
Jesus Christ.
I want David Attenborough to do like a documentary on Alex Pereira. It'd just be mesmerizing, that would.
That gif of him staring at Jamal Hill is like one of the best things to come out of that whole card. Like putting the absolute fear of God into someone. Jesus.
He is a top tier.
Wait, Jake, I'm confused. Did you cut off then, or did you cut yourself off?
I thought you said he is a top tier and then stopped.
Yeah.
Oh, stop! Oh shit! My shit is lagging. I said like a minute ago that Pereira is a top tier hater. It just showed up now apparently.
Oh fuck.
Is there anything else that I feel like there was like no news this week? So weird. Like I was trying to like go back over the last week and think of things that we needed to talk about, but there wasn't a whole lot.
Charles Oliveira possibly signed a bout agreement.
Yeah.
He teased a tweet. Any ideas who that might be?
Beneil Dariush, I think.
Yeah, hope so.
Because he went back to one of Marcel Dorf's old tweets when Oliveira versus Dariush was announced in 2020, and he commented something underneath that. So, yeah, I think it's Dariush.
I know what we haven't talked about. Something that somehow got lost in our UFC 283 recap. Jose Aldo being in the Hall of Fame. What a moment!
Yeah.
The clip that they played for him. His reaction in the arena, it reminded me a lot of Bisping in London. Just a beautiful moment. Like the fans in that arena treat him like royalty. So to see him get that moment was like so great. Jose Aldo does not get the respect that he deserves nowadays. So we can't leave that out.
It's interesting they went on Aldo instead of Anderson Silva, who's not in there yet either.
That is strange why he's still not been inducted.
I don't think they like Silva, honestly. Yeah. I feel like the top UFC brass and Silva don't have the best relationship. And like if you don't get on well with the guys at the top in the UFC, you're not going to end up in places like the Hall of Fame. Like look at Frank Shamrock, for instance, first ever light heavyweight champion, set the record for title defenses at the time. But you never hear his name anymore because he and Dana don't get along. So yeah, it's great to see Aldo in there though. He's like as legendary as it comes in MMA. We use the word legend a lot, but you know, legend and Aldo are synonymous at this point.
Yeah, enough said, I think. The only other bit of news I've got is that Sage Northcutt is coming back for the first time in 4 years. So it's been a quiet old week for news.
I was going to say, we've basically got the full 286 card at this point.
Oh, yeah.
There's 15 fights now, so that's pretty much all we're going to get, I reckon. And tickets go on sale this week, of course. So, what do we think of that?
Slightly disappointed. But the only reason I've got a slight disappointment is because of how Dana said it was going to be so massive and monumental. I think it's kind of just each week's gone by without them kind of booking a fight for it. And now we're a couple of months away and there's like 4 good fights on it. Or not, I mean, there's a lot of good fights, but there's like 4 fights that you think that's a really good fight. But
I think the shame is on you lot for believing Dana White when he says he's going to do.
Well, yeah, that is true.
Come on.
I think
he was never
going to play.
Get Colby and Chimaev.
How would anyone ever believe that? I don't understand. There's no way that Colby was fucking going to England to have a fight against Chimaev.
I think I prefer the co-main we got though over that.
Yeah, I
don't think we would have got both. That's the issue. We wouldn't have got both.
No way.
Because as much
I
as
do think
stack it out, it's not going to be that good.
I do think we were on track to get Holloway versus Allen.
Yeah.
Allen obviously hurt his rib.
I think there was a few injuries that have kind of plagued it. Obviously, Paddy's apparently having to have surgery, which has came out recently. Which obviously I think they were planning on getting him on the card. Aspinall obviously hasn't kind of hit the timeline of being able to compete there. So injuries kind of plagued it, but they were injuries I kind of already knew about, like before he made that comment. So I don't know.
Has there been anything on Molly getting a fight? I haven't seen her announced in anything. It's going to be weird because you were saying there's 15 fights now. Like that's usually the UFC standard nowadays, which is weird. I don't like having 15 fights on a card. Yeah. It's too much.
15, one of them being Chris Duncan versus TBA.
Yeah.
So we don't really know what's going on with that yet. They're doing a Q&A for the card in London this week, so it'll be interesting to see if some of them all get officially announced. If Arnold says anything, he's going to be there. If he says anything about Holloway, and of course tickets go on sale this week, so they're going to start ramping it up pretty soon.
Will any of you be going if you can get tickets?
No, I'm seeing how much they are.
I'll be trying to.
Yeah. I'm hopefully covering it with Cage Side, so fingers crossed. But
I will be trying to, but I will be right up at the top.
Yeah,
and still paying well over 100 quid for it. So
they don't need to announce any other really good fights, though, because no matter what the card is, it's going to sell out within days anyway. So, minutes on the pre-sale, and then whenever it does for the general sale, that'll go in minutes. But they don't really need to announce any other massive fights because it sells out as it is.
Yeah, regardless of how the card was going to look, when they were talking about doing it in Cardiff, I was considering going because obviously it would have been a higher capacity and Wales is just across the water from here. But then go and fucking do it in the O2. You know where I will be though? In December, I'll be at PFL at the fucking European Championships. That's where I'll be. That's where the shit is happening. So, yeah.
Yeah, I'm looking at Cage Warriors the Friday night and then UFC, that's the Saturday night. That's the plan for me.
Sounds lovely. We didn't talk about You go, Steve. Sorry.
Hopefully covering Cage Warriors with this fine establishment right here.
Indeed. We didn't talk about the PFL Europe announcements, but to be honest, we only know who Dakota and Simeon are fighting, and there's not a whole lot of other details. So we will get stuck into that when more is announced. Because I think there's going to be some opinions on that one. And we'll leave it there. Right, I'll catch you guys next week.
Yeah, see you in a bit.
Safe. See you in a bit.
Boys.